So if I'm a Chiefs fan, I say we played poorly. Mahomes was off his game. We're on the road against a great defense. The opposing quarterback played out of his mind, and we won. Check. If I'm a Jets fan, I'm like, Zach Wilson. Hey, man, that guy was great. Refs did not give us a break. You know what I'm saying? Hey, Mahomes, we gave him nothing but trouble, and we overcame a 17-0 deficit. We should have won. I buy the Chiefs argument. Yeah. Kansas City's become LeBron. I don't really worry about an occasional regular season stinker. They'll figure it out. Kansas City last year lost to the Colts early in the season, had a special teams meltdown. The Texans were awful and took them to overtime. This week you had the Travis Kelce, Taylor Swift relationship stuff all over the papers, all over the distractions. Listen, the Jets, I know you're feeling great today. You lost. You weren't remotely ready to play. You trailed 17-0 at home. Zach Wilson still had the key turnover, a fumble late in the game. And when the Jets defense, that great defense, had to make a stop, Mahomes toyed with it. 15 plays, 7 minutes, 24 seconds, and then to add insult to injury, he slides right before the goal line. He completely, absolutely got what he wanted. There's a reason Aaron Rodgers is in the building. The franchise moved off Zach. He's not the guy. So moral victories don't work for me. When you needed him to make a play, he fumbled. When you needed your Jets defense to make plays, Mahomes manipulated you for 7 minutes and 24 seconds. Buffalo's 3-1, they're better. Miami's 3-1, they're better. New England already beat you, and now you got to go play Miami twice, at Buffalo, at New England, Chargers, Cleveland on the schedule, Philadelphia too. Last night was a game there for the taking, and you didn't take it. Ask yourself this, when it comes to movies, if it has a great beginning and a great end, it's almost always a great movie, right? Kansas City, 17-0 lead, sealed it with a long drive. That's a good movie. Congrats on dominating the second quarter. I know I'm supposed to be Mr. Positive here, but Mahomes struggled. Zach Wilson played out of his mind for big chunks of that game, and you lost. In the beginning, Kansas City had a better game plan, better efficiency, jumped out to a huge lead, scuffled in the second quarter, a little bit in the third, but when it mattered, Mahomes, again, big drive. So you can see it two ways. I see it this way. A great franchise had an off night and still figured out how to have a great ending and win the game, get on a flight home. And a bad franchise with a quarterback they've already bailed on, let's be honest, they bailed on him, that's why Aaron's in town, outplayed for big chunks of the game in the middle, the Chiefs, but when it mattered, they fumbled and couldn't make a stop. So I understand that everybody's taking these positives away. But in the end, what do you have this morning? Another loss? Aaron promising he'll come back late in the season. Let's be honest, he won't. He can't. That doesn't work that way. His age and that surgery. I know, there's supposed to be a bunch of positives here. I don't see it. That game was the Colts game last year where the Chiefs stunk for big chunks of it. Colts beat them. This game was the Texans game last year. Texans took them to overtime. You couldn't make a stop. So you can talk about all the victories and the moral stuff. I'm not trying to be negative, but we know in the end what happened. What happened was Kansas City didn't play well and still won. That's what they do. That's what LeBron did in regular seasons. LeBron, for about a 10-year stretch, would end up in the finals, and that's why Kansas City ends up in Super Bowls. They don't play well. They're on the road. The other quarterback plays out of his mind, and they leave the building, fly back home with a W. All right, the other game that is worth noting. So, Miami-Buffalo. So when you look at all these teams that we sort of, we all kind of agree on teams that feel like they could get to a Super Bowl. You got San Francisco. You got Philadelphia. You got Buffalo. Who did I write? You got Dallas. You got Miami maybe. There's 6 or 7 teams we talk about. Only one of them is pretty weak defensively in terms of personnel. I love Vic Fangio for Miami, the coordinator. but their personnel is very average. They've allowed the 5th most points in the league. And so when you look at them now statistically, I think Miami is built for track meets and not fist fights. They're not built for alley fights. And that yesterday was a little bit of that. If you look at the stats, first downs, time of possession, yards per play, passing yards, you would have thought this thing went to overtime. But if you watch the game, you saw Buffalo push Miami around. And that's really the issue. You can beat San Francisco, Philly. You generally don't push them around. You can beat Kansas City. You generally don't push them around. The Chargers offense pushed them around, and Buffalo pushed them around on both sides of the ball. And so Josh Allen in the red zone against Miami, it looks like varsity against JV. Miami doesn't have the dudes. They, in the last 12 games against Josh Allen, they're 10-2. His passer rating's about 110. And in the red zone, it becomes so obvious they don't have the personnel to stop Josh Allen. He's just better than all their athletes. He's just better than everybody they have on the defensive side, with or without Vic Fangio. And here's the thing. I love Miami still. Best watch in the league, arguably. They're a very strong offensive team. But this happens in September and early October. The weather's good. Remember, you scheme up your plays in the offseason. Andy Reid's one of the best September coaches of all time. You catch people off guard. You also, defenses don't tackle particularly well in September because now starters don't play in the preseason. You also, in the summer, you get quarterbacks, tight ends, wide receivers, running backs all playing together. Right? You don't have defensive guys that go meet in California and Arizona and stand around. So offenses generally have an advantage over defenses early in the season. Then the defense gets some film. They can exploit you. They find tendencies. The weather gets cool. And now, be honest, New England held Miami to 24 points and Buffalo held them to 20. So the two defensive coaches they've faced have pulled them back down to earth. Now, Miami's speed is so phenomenal, there's no question about this. They're going to make Denver's Swiss cheese defense look awful, or the Chargers' poorly coached defense look bad. But against Belichick and Sean McDermott and a decent pass rush, and now you don't get everything you want, and that's in September. Try playing those guys when it's 13 degrees and windy. So I think when I look at the Miami Dolphins, they're going to go probably obliterate the New York Giants on a short week next week. You can bet that game right now. Miami's going to probably obliterate the Giants. But I think through 4 weeks, when you look at the Miami Dolphins, here's what we have. Wildly creative, brilliant offense, much more built for track meets than street fights. Early in September, they caught people off guard. They're going to win a bunch of games against bad defenses or bad defensive coaches. A lot of lopsided wins. But we do have a little tendency here. When you play McDermott's defense or Belichick's defense, it's just not quite as impressive. And when you face a great quarterback, which the AFC has Lamar and Josh Allen and Mahomes and Herbert, they kind of walk through this defense. Never forget, most of us thought the Chargers had that game won up and down the field. Buffalo did have that game won. So it's fun to watch. It's interesting. They're a track meet. I love Miami. But 4 games in now, we got a little sense here. You can move the ball up and down the field if you have an elite quarterback. And that's who you're going to face in the AFC playoffs late, an elite quarterback. Both Herbert and Allen up and down the field. And I think there's limitations to that. I think they're going to be a great regular season team. I'm sure they'll win a playoff game. But we got 4 games now. They're an avalanche against bad defenses, and they come back down to earth against good defensive coaches and good defensive cultures. And they have no answer for Josh Allen. Absolutely no answer for Josh Allen.